Welcome everyone to Arts Alive. I'm Kathy Castro, your host, and we have a great program for you today, so please stay tuned and enjoy. Coming right up, Chef Courtney, who's going to do pumpkin spiced donuts. You can work right along with her on this.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Chef Courtney, and today on our show we will be making simple pumpkin spice donuts. So the trick here is I'm actually not going to make my dough from scratch, and we don't have to let anything rise whatsoever. If you go to the grocery store and if you go into your refrigerated section, kind of where all the butter is and the biscuit section is where you want to go. I picked up some just buttermilk biscuits. I didn't do the flaky version. You could absolutely do the flaky version too. That would be more of a cronut, kind of the flaky donut, croissant donut, if we did it that way. But we're just gonna do this plain, simple biscuit today. I have about 1 inch of oil in my pan right now, and we are gonna get that heated all the way to 375. We don't wanna do anything more than 375 because the dough will burn. Anything less than 375, anything less than 350, the donuts will come out super oily, and that's not what we want because we wanna be as healthy as possible here. I know this isn't one of my healthiest recipe, but you could absolutely get a low fat or a reduced fat biscuit dough. So how we're gonna do this is we could absolutely leave these biscuits like this and then fry them and then stuff them with some sort of filling afterward. If you wanted to buy a pie filling, a Bavarian filling, you can Bavarian would be like a vanilla pudding. And you could just throw it right in the middle of this, kind of like a Boston cream donut. But we wanna do some fall things right now and make it pumpkin spice-y. So I just found a shot glass in my cabinet because this was the perfect size circle that I needed for the center to make the donut hole. Whatever you guys can find in your house, if you don't have one, just take a knife to the middle, make a circle in the middle, that should be fine. And then we're just gonna press. So I dipped the tip of, the rim of the shot glass in a little bit of all-purpose flour so that it doesn't stick to the biscuit when it comes out, because we want a clean cut right in the middle of this biscuit dough. Just like that. And we're not throwing away the middle, remember, because we want some little donut holes that are so cute. We can actually roll these up while we're waiting for the oil to heat up. So I have about a cup of granulated sugar thrown in here, with a tablespoon of pumpkin spice. It's a spice, you can get it right in the spice aisle. If you do not have pumpkin spice in your local grocery market or store or wherever you go to get your groceries, it's just a mixture of cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger. I want to even say some cloves are in here. This is your typical pumpkin spice flavoring. That's what we all get in our lattes. So we're gonna just kind of mush that around a little, and I like it. One thing I always learned in culinary school, if you're gonna make cinnamon sugar, make sure you can taste the cinnamon sugar. So you might wanna up the pumpkin pie spice to 2 tablespoons, dependent on how fragrant you like your spices. I like to be able to taste it. So if you up your cinnamon in your cinnamon sugar, you should up your pumpkin pie spice in this guy too. I also have a tablespoon of brown sugar that I'm gonna throw in here. And what this does is it adds a little molasses flavor to it. Just another fall flavor. Make sure you have a bowl that's big enough that can toss your donuts afterward, after drying from the oil. Into this bowl, we toss it, and that's how it gets all coated. But you have to do it when it's hot still, or else the cinnamon sugar will not stick to your donut. I'm gonna just start with the donut holes just because they're a little smaller, and I wanna make sure that my oil is up to temperature. You can use a thermometer too if you'd like. Perfect. You can put a thermometer right on the side. If you have a higher pot, they have those thermometers that actually stick right on the side of the pot, which are really nice. Oh, this is great. You can already see this guy starting to puff up. So we want to just lower that a little bit because it's browning just a little too much. We don't want our donuts to be raw in the middle. They're going to cook too fast if they're raw. Let's get our rings down in there. And we want to go slowly because remember when we're throwing these biscuits in here, these are cold. We're going to lower the temperature of the oil. We don't want to lower it too much because then our donuts are going to be soggy. Just gonna get a light brown on this. These are easy to do with kids at home as well, just because donut dough is a little finicky when you're making it. It's kind of something that you need to practice, especially when it's a yeast donut. I'm just impatient and I want to eat the donuts now, and these are delicious. And these won't last for too long either. Anything that's fresh and homemade, just like donuts, we all know that that has a shelf life of pretty much about a day. And by the end of the day, it's not as good as it was in the morning, but these will last the day. Could always warm them up in the oven again in the morning to re-crisp them up. Just gonna throw my donut holes right in the cinnamon sugar and give them a little toss because they're still warm. And if you don't know if these are cooking right in the middle, just do a test batch and cut one open, see if it has cooked all the way through. But if you're doing a temperature of about 350 to 375, it should only take 3 to 5 minutes on each side because these are very, very thin. They were about only a half of an inch thick. So if they were thicker, you'd want to kind of lower that heat a little bit from 375 maybe to 360-ish. Cook them for a little bit longer because we don't want them to get burned on the outside with a higher temperature, and then they're going to still be raw in the middle. If you don't like this pumpkin spice flavoring, you can absolutely toss these guys right in a cinnamon sugar. You can do powdered sugar. You can do a cinnamon powdered sugar. That's good too. If you don't like any of those sugar, like the cinnamon sugar type deals, you can make a glaze and then put them on a wire rack and then drizzle the glaze over the top of it. You can do chocolate ganache and dip it in. All right, let's take these guys out of here. I'm gonna give this guy a dab. He looks done. You can feel it. It's so like crispy and crunchy. I'm just trying to take all that oil out. You guys can tell I'm not an oil fan. I'll just grab these little donut holes, put them to the side over here, and then put that guy in, give him a dab over here. And then we'll flip this guy over. I don't like anything greasy because it shows people that it wasn't properly done. And then we're just gonna douse this guy. This looks so cute. People are going to think that you have a professional donut shop within your home. Just take this guy. You can start just building our platter now. Always keeping presentation in mind, correct? Just give this guy a toss. So with every donut, you just want to dab it off quickly, throw it in the cinnamon sugar. Or this, I keep saying cinnamon sugar because that's usually what I use, but the pumpkin pie spice sugar, we'll call it that. It's just a very long word to continuously keep saying. And then when you pull it out, just pull it out doused because you don't want to take any of that cinnamon sugar off. Just give it a little light dusting or dump, just like that. So we would totally be done, but we have to spice it up a little bit. I have a already pre-made salted caramel, my favorite. You would want to let these cool down a little bit, but if you're going to eat them right away, that is totally fine. I'm going to make a glaze, and we're going to do that together. So these can get a little bit cool because they're kind of piping hot still. Look at that. Look at how gorgeous that guy looks. So I have about 1/4 cup powdered sugar. And I have some water on the side. I always make my glaze with water instead of milk. And you just add as much as you need, little by little. Always think. You can always add, but you can't take out with this because then you would have to go get some more powdered sugar, and then it's just a pain in the butt. So we want a pretty thick icing, but thin enough so that you can drizzle it right on the top of the donuts. It's okay if it falls off. This is just the decoration. I love icing. I like a lot of it. But because this already has a lot of sugar on it, we're not gonna put too much. And you can already see it starting to fall off the donuts because the donuts are still hot. This is so much better than going to the donut shop. And then last but not least, salted caramel. And this just puts the perfect touch. And for the ladies out there that love brunch, I would totally bring this to a girls' brunch and impress people because they're just so easy and nobody is ever going to guess that it is a biscuit. We'll show you when we cut it up. Our beautiful, simple pumpkin spice donuts. And how cute is that? That is gorgeous. It tastes like you're drinking a pumpkin spice latte at the same time as eating the donut. It's so fluffy. The salted caramel, I think, is what ties in the pumpkin spice flavoring with the donut, and it makes it feel like that latte feel. But I'm telling you guys, super easy, super simple. Try this at home. Let me know how it goes, and we will see you next time.
Welcome back, everyone, and it's my pleasure to introduce someone who is no stranger to all of us, David Mello, the librarian for the Children's Department at the Fall River Public Library. And David has some nice October Halloween-type stuff for us today.
Yes, I do.
Don't you, David? Yeah. I'm looking at those Poe socks of yours there.
Yes, in honor of my little reciting of the Raven today, I wore my Poe socks.
And we have the man himself here.
And we have the Raven, of course.
Where did this come from, David?
Oh, I bought this years back.
Did you really?
You find them around this Halloween.
Oh, yeah, he's got. It feels like real feathers on him.
And it is real feathers.
Is it real?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Very nice. And a little candle. And so, tell us a little bit about Edgar.
Well, Edgar Allan Poe, he was born right here in Boston in 1809, and his parents were actors. And unfortunately, Poe is, besides his tales of terror and mystery and his poetry, he's also known for having such a sad life, a tragic life.
Yeah.
But the man still managed to persevere and come across with some wonderful pieces of literature.
Oh, yeah.
The father of the modern mystery, master of the macabre, and just a genius at the short story. And he left behind plenty for us to remember and to appreciate him for today.
Well, how old was he? He died in, I think it was.
He died in
was it
1849,
Yeah,
so he was only
very
40
young.
years old,
Yeah.
very young. So
Yeah.
one can only imagine what he
could have
done if he
Right.
had lived a little bit longer.
And I believe he died in Baltimore.
He died in Baltimore, yes.
Penniless, pretty much.
Penniless, wearing another man's clothes, lying in the
Yeah,
gutter.
terrible,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. He was found in the gutter and died, I believe, a day later or two later, maybe 2 days later in the hospital in Baltimore. Yes.
So why don't you read for us one of his more
Yes.
famous works?
Yeah, probably one of his, what most remember Poe for, The Raven, written in 1845. It was his piece that brought him, world-renowned fame.
Fabulous rhythm and rhyme in that.
Yep, we all think of it for its musical quality, for
Exactly.
its dark atmosphere, and for Nevermore.
Nevermore.
And so here we go.
Okay.
Without further ado, The Raven.
The Raven.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, as I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis a visitor," I muttered, rapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember it was the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for that rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so faintly you came tapping, and so gently you came rapping at my chamber door, that scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon I heard a knocking somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is someone at my window lattice. Let me see what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore." 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven from the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a moment stopped nor stayed he, but with mane of lord and lady perched above my chamber door, perched above a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim and ancient raven, wandering on the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on this night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For one cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon a sculpted bust just above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word it did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he shall leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, surely what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whose unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hopes that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining which the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining which the lamplight gloated o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by some unseen censer, swung by seraphims whose footfalls now tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God has lent thee, by the angels he has sent thee, respite, respite, and nepenthe, and forget thy lost Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget thy lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, think of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent thee or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, in this home of horror haunted, tell me, truly I implore, tell me, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, truly I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God that we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word a sign of parting. Bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest, and this night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul has spoken. Leave my memories unbroken. Quit thy bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's who is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming casts his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
Wonderful. One of my all-time favorites.
One of mine as well.
Oh, yeah. And what year was that written, David?
It was written in 1845.
And he
it
died?
Was he died in 1849.
49,
And
yeah.
oddly enough, the poem, it was first submitted for publication to a good friend of his, George Rex Graham, who ran a literary magazine, the Graham magazine, and he declined it. He thought the poem was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
It broke Poe's heart right in that office. They actually took up a collection for him, and they gave him $15 before he left the office at the Graham Literary Magazine.
Right.
And it was later published at the price of $9 for the publication. But after it was published, that was the piece that brought him
The most fame, I
fame,
think,
yes.
yeah.
After that, he went around on literary circuits, and he would recite the poem, and audiences would sit about and actually beg him to read the poem aloud. And in the front rows, it was all the single women who would sit down, and they would stare at him and
Yeah, his
look up at
wife
him.
died very young. His wife was his first cousin.
Yeah, right.
And she died a very young woman,
Yeah.
as of course did his mom and dad.
Yes,
so it was,
yeah. A lot of death around him.
Oh, yeah. He was
definitely
kind
left
of
its
obsessed
stamp on
with
his
that.
work, yes.
Right, as it
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
So thank you so much for that,
My
David.
pleasure. Thank you for
made our
having me.
You've made our Halloween show.
My pleasure.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ron Weisberger. I'm the director of the Bristol Community College Holocaust Center. And we are here in our region to promote education related to both the Jewish Holocaust and other genocides. We have a number of programs scheduled for this year, and this particular month we have a program, a workshop, October 19th, for regional teachers, high school, middle school, and our college. And that'll be at the Jackson Center from 9 to 3 o'clock. It's a Friday. And then we have our annual fundraiser on November 5th from 6:30 at night to 9, music of composers who were murdered in the Theresienstadt or Theresienstadt concentration camp. These are composers well known, at least at the time, and we're going to be playing their music, but the Hawthorne String Quartet, and it's going to be narrated by Dr. Ludwig, who is a violist with the BSO and the director of the Theresian Foundation. He will be talking about the composers, and the Hawthorne String Quartet will be playing the music. That's November 5th. Finally, on November 7th and 8th, we have Henry Oster, who is a survivor, 90-year-old survivor of Auschwitz, author of The Kindness of the Hangman. He will be here from Los Angeles, and survivors are always incredible. You won't want to miss that. 12:30 on November 8th at the Jackson Art Center. Also will be speaking to students and staff from regional high schools at the Conley High School on November 7th at 10 o'clock. So I hope you'll be able to attend some of these programming that we are having, and we'll have other programs in the winter and spring. Thank you.